part of your daily life. Well, we tried to collect data with programs who weren't part of the government-funded stream. We gave them the software. We gave them somebody to come in, input the data for them. We gave them money if they turned their data in, and they never did it. It would drive me crazy because they're too busy with their regular jobs, students in front of them, fundraising, that they just couldn't, unless they were absolutely had to do it for their funding purposes. They really just couldn't. And so I kind of feel like it's the same way with advocacy. And let's see. So using a process, like if you decide to take it on, using a process that has a definite timeline, definite schedules, it really helps people get engaged. I have a board of directors, and the ones who participated in the process were really into it. The ones who didn't participate in the process would listen to the reporting out, but they had nothing to contribute. They were like, yeah, that's great. So which one? Because we would say, here is our vision for advocacy and public policy. And they were so excited about it. And the people who hadn't been part of making that vision were like, that's great. Check and move on. So having as many people around the table as possible really helps. And that's another one of my favorite quotes that I got from the readings. John Forrester, he writes a lot about power of planning. And he says, planning is a deeply social process of making sense together. It takes so much time. You want to skip it. You want to just go on to what you need to do. But it really gets everyone engaged. Number 3, the adult literacy field relies primarily on practitioners. And you can see some of the responses to the same survey that I did. It's basically, y'all are really sort of ahead of us on the top ones. I did a 2-page survey for the literacy providers. The one that comes in the book is like 20 pages. And so I condensed it down. It looks like this, and it's enormous. And so I basically just took it down to 2 pages, about 20 questions, and then I just gave y'all like 7 that I thought were interesting. Most of our providers had an interest in advocacy, but they really had not done anything about it. They indicated some movement, and they still wanted to learn more. And they had the same list, top on page 3, same list that y'all did. By the way, I do say y'all, it's not a joke. At my orientation for St. FX, somebody thought I was joking the first time I said it. The strength listed by most respondents was working with other organizations in a coalition. And then interesting, they had the strength responding to issue alerts by organizations. And y'all didn't really list that as much here. Is that not something that happens? Like we have federal public policy people. That's where they mostly come, is from the people who are working at the federal level. They send things out. Hey, call your legislators today. This, whatever is happening tomorrow. Does that not happen in Canada? No. Okay. Yeah. And then their biggest concern, same as with y'all business, what your biggest concerns were, finding time to act effectively. And then Katrina. I haven't really talked about Hurricane Katrina. And if you're interested, I'll talk more about it after the session. It, of course, affects everything that we do now. It changed everything. I was actually in Toronto when Hurricane Katrina hit. I was on vacation, and we got stuck here for a little while. But just from a literacy point of view, our office, there were 9 people in my office from 2 organizations, and 7 people lost their homes. So when you just think about trying to get back up and running again, 7 people who can't go stay with their family or their mom or their dad either because they lost their homes too, just trying to get back and going. So it really has sort of, from a literacy perspective, reinforced the need for coalitions in my mind. At the local level, at the next level, and the next level, because people who are struggling to get their literacy programs back up and running, and, our programs still are 50% of what they were before the hurricane, they are struggling. So you need someone who can be at the government meetings, who can be at the planning meetings, who can be, wherever you need to be, who's not actually running a day-to-day program, who can be the intermediary for you. So I always try to promote coalitions or some sort of intermediary. If you live in a rural area, it's got to be a coalition of multiple service organizations. Any questions on those findings or comments so far? I will say a lot of people thought I was Canadian when I came back because all I had was my suitcase of clothes. I did not lose my house, but I couldn't get back into it for at least a month, 2 weeks. And I had just gone to Frontier College, and so I had a Frontier College hat on when I was doing volunteer work. And we were like, "Are you from Canada?" And we were like, "Oh, let me think." Who's the novice? No. So, all right, the last one, number 4, is not the last one, is it? Yeah. The issue of literacy does not have the urgency of other social service issues. You probably know this already, but it's still something that a lot of the literacy field, especially when you're in it, you kind of forget. Because when you're looking at it every day, you're like, how can you not think this is the most important thing to be funded today in today's society? But people outside of literacy just don't get that. Obama doesn't get that. Okay? I know, you think he would, but he doesn't. I was watching a webinar on workforce development, and he was like, I just want to know the general issues. Is it the community and technical colleges? Do we need to put resources there? Is it they don't have the basic skills, and we need to put resources in the K through 12 system? And we're like, oh, no. So he just doesn't get it. Turning the page 4 is community organizing. I spent a lot of time, we joined a community organizing organization, and I was really interested in using those techniques to build a stronger movement for adult literacy. Is anybody familiar with Industrial Areas Foundation? This is Saul Alinsky's sort of heritage. It started in Chicago. It's a method of organizing people where just regular people come together, talk about the issues that are going on, and they build a power organization to address public policy issues. But it's usually just things like what's happening in my neighborhood. Is it the garbage isn't being picked up? There's no lights at the school playground. Tenants at this apartment building are being harassed. Things like this are sort of what come out. It's very, very exciting work. If you're interested in public policy or civic engagement, it's very exciting. But we participated for 3 or 4 years, and everyone admitted that literacy was an issue in all of their neighborhoods and all of their congregations. It was a lot of faith-based organizations, but literacy never bubbled up to the top as an issue that this group would ever work on, because there were potholes in the streets, because people's kids weren't being served in school. So it just never really came up to the top. So I tried to take what I learned there and bring it into the literacy provider community, and that didn't work either. And I think one of the reasons, and I'm curious if y'all think of the reason too, is that although a lot of people have literacy as a vocation and a passion for literacy as a vocation, the reality is that it's their job. And advocacy is done within the boundaries of the literacy program. They're very good at writing letters in the classroom, not so much going to the Capitol. Very good at incorporating things, but really don't want to seem too political, which is a problem because the field relies mostly on practitioners to do most of the work. Do y'all agree with that? Do you think that's the case? I mean, this is for Canada, not for us, because this is what I see in the United States. But y'all feel differently about your politics and about your advocacy. I mean, y'all are doing more already. Anybody? Do you think it's true? Yeah, Leslie? Yeah.
It's a combination. I think it's a combination of resources. People really don't have, it's hard enough to just keep up with the day-to-day to be able to take on. I think when you mentioned the fear factor, that's huge.
Yeah.
To be able to start to talk to MPPs and feel like we have the right information to make the case about the statistics we're trying to.
Yep.
And so it tends to be that maybe we do something more passive, like write a letter rather than
Yeah.
make a meeting.
Yeah, we also have a lot of retired teachers, and they really, my mother is a retired teacher. I really say this out of full respect. It's no disrespect. My mother's a retired teacher and then taught GED when I was living with her after the hurricane, and she's like, they don't give us any supplies. I'm like, oh. I'm expected to teach, everybody in there is at a different level. I was like, yes, I have no sympathy for you. You know, and she really didn't want to do anything other than teach the students. You know, that's what her love, and that was, she was there. She loved students, loves them, but she really did not want to do anything else. So that to me is not a fault on them. It's just sort of a fault of why we are where we are. Also, and this came up in your issues as well, public actions are on people who fund literacy organizations. So the fear factor pops up in there as well. The last one is the stigma of literacy and the complexity of adult learners' lives. Everyone says, you know, the adult learners tell the best stories. I totally agree with that. We have not been successful in organizing adult learners at all. I mean, we had a really good adult learner leadership before the hurricane, but they didn't want to do advocacy. They wanted to do things that were very worthwhile. They wanted to talk to current high school students and convince them not to drop out. They wanted to work with other existing students, you know, and help them, be a support to them. So they wanted to do really good things, but I still have not been very successful, and that's kind of one of the ways I'm going to be moving in the future. How's the adult learner leadership movement in Canada? I don't hear much about it. No? Not? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. Well, welcome to the club. Yeah, it's a constant struggle. I mean, it's hard, yeah.
I think the voice for the learners happens at things where they're celebrated.
Yes.
Outside.
Yes.
Here for them, it was just enough to be at an event with all of us.
Right.
And say, hey, let's,
Right.
how about you guys go? We're going to a politician.
Right. Right. Yes.
We've got Literacy Awareness Day planned for November at Queen's Park to talk to the MPPs and the ministers, and we have a fair number of students that are coming forward this year to come down for meetings with the ministers, the MPPs, and speak in our reception in the evening. So it's coming along.
Yeah. So how'd you get to that point? You know, like what kind of things did you build up into that?
I think because this was originally created by the community-based grassroots programs, this whole day was created by them. The practitioners work one-on-one every day with the students.
Right.
So there's already a trust.
They were involved.
there,
Yep.
And you just bring them along slowly. So
Yep.
this is the second year.
Okay.
And we've got double the students coming in.
Oh.
So we're
Yeah.
very slowly, I think.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah. You're right. That's very exciting. Well, that's the end of the research part. Are there any other questions or comments about that? The whole thesis is on the website if you want to read it too. I don't encourage you to do that. Yes, Leslie. Geek alert.
So I encourage everyone to read it. My question is, after you did the research and after you engaged the board of directors, were you able to maintain it, or was it sort of time limited?
It stopped for a while, and it really didn't start. It was always on the back burner, but it was really very minimal until, you know, when we turned the page, until 2009, really. So I finished all of that in 2007, and it's really because my organization was going through a lot of internal change. And like everything else, advocacy always gets put on the back burner when there's anything else going on in the organization. And so I'm trying to find a ways to keep that. So we haven't gotten to that point yet. But we're one step closer as of 2009. So if you turn to page 5, we'll talk about what we have done, and most of this has been within the last 2 years. So as I said, and there's lots of samples on this. Like I said, this will be on the website, so if you like any of this, you're welcome to steal any of it. 2 things that we got out was that our board of directors actually did make a commitment to advocacy. It's in the books. They can't deny it. The board resolution is there, below there. And then we also have a vision and a mission for public policy that came out of that process that we still use today. And I still like it a lot. A lot of people like it. It's still very applicable. It's on the next page. Some of the things that we did right after all of this and during all of this and this will just sort of tell you what happens during a major disaster, is that the state had money for adult literacy for New Orleans, and the school system was using it. The school system, of course, totally washed out. They gave the money back to the state, and the state, instead of finding somebody else in New Orleans to take the money, just gave everybody in the state